The truth has leaked and it's explosive. McLaren tears up its own rulebook. Norris and Piastri unleashed. And before Austin, the orange piece is over. McLaren's internal leak didn't expose a new problem, it confirmed one that had been festering for months. What looked from the outside like a picture of balance was, in truth, a fragile truce. Two young drivers, equally fast, equally ambitious, forced to coexist under a set of rules designed to keep peace, not promote progress. The papaya rules, as they were known within Woking, were supposed to create harmony and agreement that neither driver would undermine the other, that strategy calls would be shared, and that no one would be favored. But in Formula One, equality only works when one driver is clearly faster. When both are exceptional, equality becomes conflict in disguise. From the moment McLaren unleashed the MCL39, that balance started to shift. Norris, the established star, saw himself as the leader, the emotional center of the team, the man who rebuilt McLaren's reputation from the wreckage of its Honda years. Piastri, the newcomer, saw something else: opportunity. For him, McLaren wasn't a legacy to protect, it was a ladder to climb. And in a season defined by precision and patience, his results began to reflect it. In qualifying, his average gap to Norris shrank race by race. By mid-season, telemetry showed the truth: in clean air, Piastri was often faster. Not louder, not flashier, just faster. And nothing disrupts team peace like silent superiority. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere began to change. Piastri's side of the garage, led by his data engineer Will Joseph, grew increasingly frustrated with strategic calls that consistently seemed to favor Norris. In Austria, Norris received the undercut. In Monza, Piastri's pit stop came 2 laps too late. In Singapore, after the Turn 1 collision, Norris escaped blame while Piastri was told to reset and focus. To outsiders, those were tactical decisions. Inside McLaren, they felt like hierarchy. The message, intentional or not, was clear: Lando was the team's foundation, Oscar was the apprentice. But apprentices don't stay quiet forever. Andrea Stella sensed the tension early. A man known for calm leadership, he tried to mediate before the situation reached breaking point. He hosted joint debriefs, encouraged shared simulator sessions, and even arranged joint media appearances to remind the world and the team of unity. But the facade was cracking. Mechanics stopped switching between garages. Engineers began choosing sides. The atmosphere that once felt like family had become political. One source described it bluntly: you can feel the cold when they walk past each other. It's not hate, it's competition without trust. The real flashpoint came not in a race, but in a meeting. After Singapore, during an internal performance review, both drivers were asked to share feedback on each other's racecraft. Norris was sharp, almost dismissive. Piastri was quiet, analytical. Then, according to one witness, he looked up and said calmly, "If we're racing for the same team, we should be racing by the same rules." It wasn't a complaint, it was a statement. Stella ended the meeting within minutes. But for those in the room, the tone said everything. The peace agreement was over. At the corporate level, the leadership split followed soon after. Zak Brown, McLaren's charismatic CEO, has always seen Formula One as entertainment as much as sport. To him, a rivalry, even a volatile one, is good for business. He believes that letting Norris and Piastri fight freely is proof of McLaren's maturity, not its instability. Stella, on the other hand, believes that control is strength. He watched Ferrari destroy itself through ego, and Mercedes nearly implode through politics. Freedom, he reportedly told Brown, only works when both drivers respect boundaries. Brown's answer was simple: then let's see who does. That single philosophical divide became the crack that split McLaren. The freedom to race policy wasn't born out of confidence, it was born out of exhaustion. Stella had run out of ways to keep peace. The rules had become impossible to enforce, and the tension impossible to hide. So McLaren chose the only remaining option: abandon control and let the track decide. But anyone who's studied Formula One history knows how this story tends to end. Teams that stop managing rivalry don't evolve, they explode. Inside McLaren's technology center, the rhythm of progress used to be mechanical, predictable, relentless, perfectly synchronized. But lately, that rhythm has fractured. The hum of wind tunnel tests, the chatter of engineers, the quiet confidence that once filled the factory corridors, all of it now carries a new undertone: suspicion. The leak about the papaya rules didn't just expose a team divided by rivalry, it revealed how deeply that rivalry has infected the car itself. Engineering decisions that were once guided purely by data are now shaped by politics, perception, and power. McLaren's technical heart, the aerodynamic department, led by Peter Prodromou, is now walking a fine line between innovation and instability. When Norris and Piastri began driving the same car differently, the engineers faced a problem they couldn't ignore. Norris prefers a front-loaded setup, heavy on rotation, aggressive on entry, designed to attack corners like a scalpel. Piastri, by contrast, drives smoother, more progressive, extracting stability from predictability. On paper, both styles work. In reality, they demand opposite philosophies. So when McLaren decided to end team orders, they also created a mechanical dilemma. How do you develop one car for two drivers who need two different machines? At first, the solution seemed simple: split setups. Each driver would run personalized configurations, with Norris leaning toward mechanical oversteer and Piastri opting for aero balance. But the results didn't align. Wind tunnel readings conflicted with track telemetry. Simulator feedback contradicted live data. The engineers soon realized that developing parallel setups for two world-class drivers wasn't evolution, it was chaos. The MCL39's design team began pulling in two directions, and in doing so, they broke the one rule every top team lives by: technical unity. The divide deepened as results became inconsistent. When Norris shined in qualifying, Piastri's camp claimed the car had been biased toward his driving style. When Piastri outperformed Norris in race pace, the narrative flipped. The Britain's side accused the team of tailoring strategy to flatter the Australian. Neither story was true in isolation, but perception had replaced truth. In modern Formula One, perception spreads faster than data, and once it takes root, it shapes every conversation in the garage. Engineers now whisper about driver bias the way politicians whisper about scandal. It's unspoken but understood. Andrea Stella, desperate to keep order, has begun holding dual technical briefings, one for each driver's camp, followed by a joint session meant to reconcile philosophies. It's a diplomatic invention and a sign of desperation. No top team runs its operations this way. At Red Bull, Verstappen's feedback defines the car. At Mercedes, Hamilton's instinct still shapes design priorities. At McLaren, by contrast, two equal voices now compete for control of one machine. It's democracy at 200 miles per hour, and democracy doesn't win championships. The deeper issue lies in McLaren's development structure. After years of aggressive growth, the team's design and performance divisions operate almost like rival think tanks. The aerodynamics group at the MTC in Woking is chasing theoretical efficiency. The trackside engineers, led by Will Joseph, are chasing adaptability. Normally, these visions converge through compromise. But since the Norris-Piastri rivalry escalated, compromise has turned into defiance. When the wind tunnel predicts a gain, one group now asks, for which driver? That question alone has changed everything. It's no longer about the fastest car, it's about the fairest one. And in Formula One, fair is a dangerous word. Fair means hesitation. Fair means politics. Fair means slower. Meanwhile, inside the simulator suite, data from Austin has already exposed another headache. The MCL39's rear instability, its Achilles heel on bumpy tracks, affects Norris and Piastri differently. Norris' aggressive turn-in makes the rear end snap violently. Piastri's gentler inputs mask the instability but drain cornering speed. The engineering team can't fix both problems without compromising one driver. Normally, they'd pick a direction and move forward. But now, they can't. Every technical decision is also a political one, and every political one carries consequences on track. When the McLaren garage doors rolled open in Austin, the paddock could feel it immediately: the silence. Not the focused, professional kind. The tense, fragile kind that comes before something breaks. Team members moved with rehearsed efficiency, but the energy was off. Mechanics avoided eye contact. Engineers whispered instead of joked. Two identical cars sat under identical lights, but they might as well have belonged to different teams. On one side, Lando Norris restless, fiery, frustrated. On the other, Oscar Piastri composed, unreadable, unflinching. The leak had already rewritten the script. The papaya piece was dead, and everyone knew it. Inside the McLaren motorhome, the leadership divide finally surfaced in the open. Zak Brown arrived that morning looking confident, a sharp suit, a wide grin, the posture of a man who believes he's still in control. Andrea Stella, by contrast, looked tired. He's not the kind of man who enjoys politics, but politics had found him anyway. For weeks, the two men had been circling each other in polite disagreement. Zak wanted freedom. He wanted to let the drivers go to war and sell the drama as proof of McLaren's competitive culture. Stella wanted containment, unity, discipline, order. He understood that Formula One isn't just about speed, it's about emotional management. And today, in the heart of Texas, both philosophies were about to collide. The confrontation happened quietly, behind closed doors, but its echo spread fast. Witnesses described raised voices. Stella warning that McLaren was walking straight into self-destruction. Brown insisting that fans don't pay to watch team orders. At one point, Stella reportedly said, "You don't manage Formula One with slogans, Zak." To which Brown replied, "You don't win it by playing safe, either." It wasn't personal, it was existential. Two men fighting not for control of the team, but for its identity. And in the middle of it all, two drivers preparing to turn philosophy into physics. By the time the first practice session began, the atmosphere was combustible. McLaren's pit wall, once a model of calm communication, now looked like two separate operations. Stella sat between the race engineers, headphones on, silent and focused. Zak watched from the garage entrance, arms folded, his expression unreadable. The first radio exchange told the story. Norris complained of instability under braking. "Rear is snapping again, same as FP1, he said. Piastri, on the next lap, added calmly, "Car feels predictable today, good direction." Same car. Same setup window. Two entirely different realities. That's when the turning point came. Midway through the session, McLaren's live telemetry showed Piastri closing within a tenth of Norris through Sector 2. The engineers watching the data feed felt the air change. Norris, told over radio that his teammate was faster, immediately pushed harder too hard. The car stepped out under braking at turn 11, forcing him wide. It was a small mistake, harmless on paper, but symbolically massive. Piastri had won the first silent battle of Austin. And in Formula One, the first blow is often psychological, not physical. By the next day, the tension was headline news. Journalists smelled blood. Every press conference question was the same: "Are you two still working as a team?" Norris forced a smile. "We're professionals," he said. Piastri gave a simple nod. "We both want to win," he added. It was polite, even rehearsed, but the eyes told a different story. The British press framed it as a brewing civil war. The Australian media framed it as justice. And the Italian press, ever dramatic, called it McLaren's silent implosion. Behind the cameras, Stella called an emergency briefing. He reminded both drivers that the constructors' standings were still on the line, that the team's reputation was worth more than pride. But even he knew the message wouldn't stick. Pride is the most powerful fuel in Formula One and the most volatile. The engineers described the debrief as cold. No smiles. No small talk. Just numbers, telemetry, and the sound of two drivers quietly redefining their limits. Zak Brown, however, saw the tension as confirmation that his gamble was working. He told media later that evening, "This is what racing is, two great talents pushing each other to be better." It was a clever line, the kind you say when you need to sound in control. But inside the team, people knew better. Pushing each other is one thing. Pushing each other over the edge is another. When Saturday's qualifying arrived, it all came to a head. Norris, under pressure to reassert dominance, went purple in Sector 1. Piastri matched him in Sector 2. Coming through the final corner, both drivers were separated by less than 0.02. The timing screen froze Piastri ahead by 0.017. No celebration. No handshake. Just two helmets lowering, two visors shutting, and two pit crews staring at each other across the garage in dead silence.